Sorting the linebackers this year is going to be tough. There's a pretty clear number one prospect, but every guy behind him has at least one flaw that could turn him into a dynasty bust. Lucky for you, we're here to sort those red flags and tell you which ones to ignore. Plus, we've got the most exciting DB prospect since at least 2022, and a unicorn who's forcing us to pay attention to what's usually a forgettable fantasy position. All that and more on an all-new Draft Sharks podcast right now. Matt Schauf and Shane Hallam of DraftSharks.com here to close out the prospect preview series with a look at linebackers and defensive backs. And Shane, this LB class has me kind of looking at it like the wide receiver group that we have this year. It's fine. There are bound to be some fantasy contributors. We might even find a couple of studs from the group, but I think we're kind of waiting on draft capital to help sort things out. It's overall not an exciting crew. Is that what you think of it?
I think that's fair. I think draft capital will help us decide, kind of like the running back position now. If a guy gets drafted high, you're like, okay, teams have to really buy in. I think off-ball linebackers like that. If a team is going to draft an off-ball linebacker pretty high in the top 50 or top 100, then they're invested and they're in. And this is a group that I think could fall a little bit in terms of draft capital. There's some holes. It's not great, but they all have a skill set that I think can be used, especially for IDP purposes, to maybe rack up some of those tackles.
And that's a good point that you brought up. Just like with a running back where we see teams, put guys in more specialized roles than maybe they once did. We're seeing more teams, or I guess the better way to say it is we're seeing fewer teams just stick 2 or 3 linebackers out on the field all the time now. There are lots of teams that don't even have one guy who plays all of the time at this point at the position. So we have to not only look at the order in which they're drafted, how early they're drafted, but then also kind of wait and see what the team tells us for the role for those guys and what that team maybe has done in recent seasons in terms of who they keep on the field to know how valuable a guy is going to be. Because you could be your team's lead linebacker and still play like 78% of the snaps at this point.
It's common. It's getting more and more common that teams are having a primary nickel defense. So it even kind of lessens the linebackers that are on the field league wide in general. And in some IDP lineups where you might need 3, 4, 5 linebackers to start for you, it gets harder and harder. And so as we'll talk about, I think versatility for some of these players is going to be important for them to get the snaps.
Yeah. And we talked on the Edge show about what to look for at the position, what we want in a prospect. For me at linebacker, speed score matters just like it did on the Edge. And the reason for that is because speed score combines speed and size. If you're a smaller linebacker, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to work out, but we'd like you to be faster if you are on that smaller side. If you're bigger, you still need to be fast enough. There's not going to be too many Levon Kirklands out there. Most guys are going to fit into some range, and the bigger you are, if you can combine that with good enough speed, then you're going to be useful. You're more likely to stay on the field for 3 downs. Production, I certainly like to see production in college. I mean, I think that should be true at any position. There are different ways to measure production, but just generally, if you look the part, you got the size and the speed, and you already produced for us, there's just a bit less projection in figuring out what we can expect from you at the next level. And then, we touched on it a little bit, but are you going to play 3 downs? Part of that is the displayed ability in college, but there's a lot of differences between college offenses and defenses, the way teams play things in college and the NFL. So another part is also draft capital and landing spot. The earlier a team invests in that player, the more likely they see him as something close to a full-time.
I think instincts are so important, and that generally leads to production in college. If you instinctively know how to set up running backs and get in the lanes, make those tackles, get off blocks, that's something that I look for on film, is just kind of how natural a linebacker is. And as you mentioned, Matt, in terms of getting on the field for all 3 downs, some of these 2-down thumper old roles that would get 150 tackles in an NFL season, they don't get on the field. So can you cover a little bit? Can you rush the passer a little bit? If you can do all these different things, even if you're still going to primarily be playing the run, I think that's important to getting on the field than almost any scheme.
And of course, we're going to talk about flaws, but sometimes flaws are just what knock a guy into day 3. It doesn't mean that they're not going to contribute for us fantasy wise. So we're going to dig into those things and see who might become a sleeper if he does slide in the draft. Let's start here with Jihaad Campbell, who is pretty clear the top off ball linebacker prospect in this class. He's got plenty of size for today's NFL, 6'3", 235. He is fast, 93rd percentile speed score, so no worries about him being able to move and do whatever his team wants him to do. He's an effective pass rusher, 20 pressures on just 99 pass rushes this past year, according to Pro Football Focus. He also improved his PFF coverage grade each of the past 2 years, 13th in coverage grade among 321 FBS linebackers who are eligible for this year's draft class. Alabama had Jihaad Campbell drop into coverage about 3 times as much as he rushed the passer last year. So if you're listening to draft analysts, you'll hear them talk about Campbell being this hybrid player who can play the edge and can play off-ball linebacker. He can also drop into coverage. So he basically can do any of the things that we want him to do. The one thing to watch and potentially worry about is a shoulder injury that needed surgery, that has limited his workout ability, and it might actually make him a PUP candidate. I recently heard, to open his rookie season. Now, that could impact his 2025 fantasy viability. It doesn't seem, though, Shane, like it's going to be a long-term issue, even if it does push Jihaad Campbell into round 2.
I don't think it's anything that's going to be long term. If a team's willing to take him in the top 20 before the shoulder injury, I don't think a short term, couple months shoulder injury is going to change that. So I feel comfortable with it, even if it does push him down the board a little bit. I'll say that speed translates on film. He is fast. He closes very quickly. He does have that blitzing ability. I said Alabama really struggled in second level pass coverage, and Campbell was one of the best for them. So I think a lot of that dropping coverage, though he did improve at it, was out of necessity, but shows you his versatility. I think that's why he's a first round prospect, because he can fit so many different schemes. The techniques there, I would just like him to get better kind of instinctually, how to take the right angles to the running back, especially out in the flat. He'll sometimes run a little short, miss the tackle. Small things. And the other issue IDP wise is just, where does he play? That's where I think the team that drafts him in the scheme is going to be important. It is possible he ends up as more of a TJ Watt type 3-4 outside backer, and then does he get labeled as a D end or an edge in your league, or how does that work? So that's probably my only concern with him. Outside of that, he looks like a first round IDP rookie pick potentially.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll certainly watch to see what does happen. We'll move on to the second linebacker in this group, and what seems like the consensus number 2 linebacker on the board. We'll discuss whether he belongs there or not. But Carson Schwesinger of UCLA, a middle linebacker there, 6'2.5", around 240 pounds. His weight has varied a little bit depending on where he's been measured this offseason. Arrived as a walk-on in 2021, but got a scholarship ahead of 2022. First team All-American in 2024. That was his lone starting season at UCLA among, 3 following kind of a redshirt season. FBS leading 90 solo tackles this past year, 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, solid in coverage as well, 2 INTs, 3 passes defense. He only had 10 career starts before leaving college, but had double-digit tackles in 9 of those. So a very productive player in the ways that we need him to be productive going forward. Did leave with 1 year of eligibility left. So I don't know if he's technically an early entrant because he was at UCLA for 4 years, but did have 1 more year that he could have played. I think the fact that he's coming out tells us the league is telling him that it's okay to go ahead and come out. He accepted a Senior Bowl invite, but didn't go. Dane Brugler says it was because of an injury. I didn't see an injury reported otherwise, so I'm not sure about that. And I bring that up because to me, it kind of ties into questions I have about his workout schedule through this pre-draft period. He did not work out at the UCLA Pro Day because of a hamstring issue, fine, but that followed a combine where he just jumped to the vertical and did the bench press and nothing else. He then had a personal workout early in April, still didn't run the 40 there, did run the 3-cone, did run short shuttle, did do the broad jump. So that tells me the hamstring was okay, and he's purposely not running the 40. I mean, do what you want, and he's getting advisement from somebody, but I'm a little bit concerned, at least mildly in terms of splitting hairs, why this guy won't show us what his 40 time is.
I think that's the weakness. he's not going to run anyone down anytime soon. He doesn't catch anyone from behind. That he, like we've seen with maybe some of the offensive skill guys that we talked about, they're just not running the 40. Stuart Sanders isn't running the 40, right? It's not going to look good. I don't think Carson Schwesinger is going to run the 40 because it's probably not going to look good. But everything else he does is pretty masterful. In traffic, just the way that he can get off blocks and squeeze through blockers and make tackles. He always finds a way to the football, good tackle technique, just plays super smart. I watch him and I rarely see a mistake, a mental mistake, even in just that short experience. Like, how does this guy know exactly what the opposing running back is going to do? Or he can drop back into coverage, cover tight ends pretty well. Like I said, the 2 interceptions were both very good placement, reading the eyes of the quarterback, knowing where the tight end was on one of those interceptions. So he's a super solid, but I don't think he's a speed demon, and that speed score probably would look a little disappointing.
Yeah, so I think I'll ultimately be willing to push that one aside because Carson Schwesinger looks like a football player. I was reading in Dane Brugler's The Beast, getting ready for this, and Schwesinger started playing football when he was 5 in a league for 6-year-olds, and then kept playing up, year after year beyond that with his dad as the coach. He was a special teamer when he walked on. He played multiple positions in high school. It seems like he didn't get recruited because he kind of moved around positions, was a safety late in high school. And then also the end of high school just kind of rubbed up against the COVID stuff where his last year there got limited. So I think it was a bit more of a quirk about him not really getting recruited as opposed to him not being good enough at that point. We're seeing that with some other prospects in the class. Otherwise, he has looked like a football player all along, where I think he's at the very least going to be pretty good in the NFL. And I guess we'll see, based on how early he gets drafted, where he goes, what his new team says, just how good we should expect him to be. Next up is Danny Stutsman of Oklahoma, who, Shane, I know you've been a fan of all along. Another Mike linebacker, seems kind of similar in style to Carson Schwesinger, 6'3", 233. He can run, though. 91st percentile speed score, led Oklahoma in tackles for 3 straight seasons, so we love the production here. The best statistical season for Stutsman came in 2022 when he was a sophomore and first-time starter, but a big part of the stats being bigger that season than the preceding 2 seasons is a big difference in playing time. And it's not that he came off the field the past 2 years. Oklahoma's defense just wasn't on the field nearly as much the past 2 years. He played 992 snaps as a sophomore, then 722 and 709 the past 2 years. Missed 1 game in each of those years, but that's not enough to make up a more than 200 snap difference. It was actually the Oklahoma defense dropping by 7 plays per game each of the past 2 seasons. So they just weren't on the field as much, not as many opportunities to collect stats. Didn't stop Stutsman from going over 100 tackles each of his 3 starting seasons, 37 tackles for loss over that span. So we love him being able to make those plays coming forward, shows that he gets into the backfield and disrupts plays rather than just catching ball carriers down the field. Looks like he might be questionable in coverage, though, Shane. Dane Brugler says he was more encouraging as a junior in that area than he was this past year. The PFF grades agree with that, where there's a spike in his coverage grade in that 2023 season. It comes back down in 2024. What do you like and dislike about Stutsman?
I think he's the best in the class at getting off blocks, is super strong, and is able to disengage with those blockers and make those tackles, fill the lanes pretty quickly and pretty easily. Plays really downhill. He's not going to get run over, even at 233, stacking him up against some 220-pound backs, and he's driving them backwards. He's driving 320-pound offensive linemen backwards. It has a lot of that functional strength along with the speed and athleticism. Those things combined make him really interesting. I think depending on the scheme, I think Mike linebacker is perfectly suited for Stutsman, but you can definitely move him around. The coverage is a problem. They asked him to do more from what I saw at Oklahoma, a lot more man coverage this year than just the drop back in a shallow zone and kind of read the play. And he struggled with that, going up against tight ends, backs out of the flat. I think that's an area of concern why he's not, a top 50 pick, but probably more of a late second into early round 3 pick. Something he could get better at. I think if Stutsman's on the field, I expect production to come in almost any scheme.
He's certainly got the speed to be able to cover, and the size is good enough to, play in those coverage aspects. We'll see what his team says about him, whether they think they can coach him up, or if he ends up being a guy who plays those limited snaps. That could cap his fantasy ceiling if that's the case. Even though we're wrapping up the prospect preview series here, we are far from done discussing these incoming rookies. We will have reaction shows during and after the NFL draft. We've got a rookie mock draft coming next week with a special guest. And of course, we will be moving on to focusing on 2025 for all fantasy formats very soon. So follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure that you don't miss a thing. Moving on, we've got Smael Mondon next from Georgia. 6'2", 224. He's fast enough. 66th percentile speed score. 3-year starter at Georgia. That's tough not to like. I'm not seeing attractive production in any particular area with him, though. What is it that makes Mondon one of the better prospects at linebacker?
I think he's one of the better cover linebackers. That's probably where you want him, and where Georgia started to lean into dropping him back in coverage, which was part, not wholly, but part of the reason why those tackle numbers weren't the only 57 tackles last year. But he does set the edge really well. Does close on running backs heading to the sideline when they're trying to go east-west. He's going north-south and covering, closing, tackling those running backs. He is small. I think he gets pushed around, even though he's muscular, he's big, he has some strength to him. But if you get your hands on Mondon, you can kind of move him around. So he gets moved out of plays. There's plays he should be involved in, he's not involved in. My other worry with him is injury. He had a stress fracture surgery in 2024, the same injury on that foot in 2023. I don't like foot injuries for linebackers when you need to move like these guys do. So I think there's a lot of upside with the coverage, with the speed, a good tackle technique. I think there's a lot of downside with the injuries and the lack of production. I think he's kind of a high upside, high ceiling, low floor type of linebacker.
Draft capital could be especially important here. If he makes it into round 3, that says a team sees that upside and feels like it's worth chasing. If he's more like round 5, round 6, even, that to me is a team saying, well, he can play special teams for us, and then we'll see beyond that.
I think that's really fair. I would expect 3rd, maybe 4th round. I think the medical is going to make a big impact on Smael Mondon's draft stock.
Next guy is Demetrius Knight, another SEC guy from South Carolina. Size is solid here, 6'2", 235. Speed is good, 81st percentile speed score. Nice production as a starter the past 2 years. One of those at Charlotte, one at South Carolina. Team high tying 57 solo tackles on a talented South Carolina defense that we're not done talking about on this show. Looks strong in coverage. PFF had him allowing just 65.8 and 65.1 passer ratings on targets in his coverage the past 2 years. So what's the problem with Demetrius Knight, Shane? He turned 25 in January. So those 2 starting seasons that we just referenced came when he was fully 23 years old and fully 24 years old. A lot older than plenty of the guys that he's playing against and with.
And I think that's a big part of the issue, because you watch Knight and he'll pop you, he'll hit you. Not something he did early in his career, but I think now that he's a little more developed than some of the 18, 19-year-olds he's going up against. That, and then he could just slap you around. I think that works. So I think it is a concern. He's a hard hitter, good, like you said, good in coverage, good at everything. Very tight hips is my worry with him. He's very kind of slow to change direction. If things go where he expects them to go, he does well. And if they don't, then he's usually out of the play. So it's hard to point to one thing and say, oh man, Demetrius Knight is great at this. So that can sometimes make for a fine NFL linebacker, but it's going to be tough, I think, for him to have a full-time, 80, 85% type of snap role in the NFL.
Yeah, he'll be somebody to be aware of in case an injury happens in front of him. And, we'll see where he lands on an NFL depth chart heading into next season. That age is probably going to affect where he gets drafted. Barrett Carter from Clemson, the next guy on our list, 6 foot, 231. So not ideal size, but not out of the picture because of that. Nice experience and production. A 3-year starter at Clemson, 10 plus tackles for loss in each of those 3 seasons, 20 passes defensed across those 3 seasons. So seems like a guy who should be able to play in coverage for us. But Shane, just 42nd percentile 40, 43rd percentile broad jump, 57th percentile vert, a little bit better. And all that goes along with 13th percentile height, 20th percentile weight. So do I need to worry about a guy who played well in college, but might not be the right combo of size and athleticism to do so in the pros?
Yes, I think that's the concern with Carter. He is smart. He is experienced. You see that experience play out on the field. He was actually invited to the 2024 Senior Bowl and accepted an invite, then ended up going back to school. He's probably going to be a 4th or 5th round pick, maybe improved his draft stock a little bit. But the athleticism, he's explosive off the snap, but doesn't have that kind of rundown ability. I think it affects him in coverage as well, and does make read mistakes. He's not, perfect mentally. He'll make mistakes, but I think the experience helped. Had 7 pass breakups, 8 hurries. They used them all over the field, coverage, rushing the passer, a lot of different ways, which is good. We like that versatility. I think it can help him get on the field. But there's definite downside that just the size and athleticism isn't there. A team drafts him, sees that in preseason, and he just never makes the requisite jump in terms of size and athleticism to be good enough to play.
Yeah, landing spot and draft capital are going to be especially important for him because it will show us what kind of opportunity we should expect early on. I would guess that Barrett Carter is going to be more somebody to be aware of over the next couple of years in case that opportunity arises, rather than somebody that we necessarily chase after in our rookie drafts. Let's go to one more bonus linebacker. Was not on the original list, Shane, but Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon shows up on a lot of lists as one of the higher ranked linebackers. Not so much for you though. The size looks fine, 6'1", 232, 64th percentile speed score, so good enough in that area. Began college as a safety. That can be a good signal for a linebacker's coverage ability. Was second team All Pac-12 as a junior, then honorable mention All Big Ten as a senior. Stat production overall, topped out at 72 total tackles in 2023, and just okay in the peripheral categories. What has Bassa lower on your list at linebacker?
He's a bit of a tweener for me. I just don't know where he's going to fit in the NFL. At Oregon, played that Mike position, but is a little bit straight line-ish. He doesn't really have the agility, versatility to fill holes laterally, and struggles in traffic when there is some linemen to weed through. It's not something he's very good at. So yeah, maybe he's better as a weak side linebacker, but I think I'd want a little bit more of the explosiveness. I think he's a good coverage linebacker, leader, smart, could be a green dot player, as we say in the NFL. But I do worry about the size and movement ability, where he fits on the field. So I have him more. I think he could go day 2. I think round 3 is possible, but I have more as a 4th to 5th round pick.
It's fair. You can find pre-draft rookie rankings for these IDPs on draftsharks.com right now. I'm going to be adding projections for all of these guys and every rookie IDP who will matter as soon as we get landing spots later this week. Those projections will combine with the format and scoring settings from your synced league to power your customized Dynasty rankings and the Dynasty Draft War Room that will help you grab the best values in your Dynasty rookie draft, in your Dynasty startup draft, or any other format that you might be drafting. So make sure you sync your leagues as soon as possible and get ready for all that drafting. We're going to move on now to the defensive backs. And Shane, I don't really have a list of what to look for at DB because I usually don't care about rookie defensive backs in rookie drafts. If it gets late and there's a safety that I like, then I'll take him. If there's a cornerback that I like, I'm dreaming because I don't like cornerbacks in dynasty leagues. That's just not a position that I'm going to draft. Although we're going to have to talk about one guy at the end of this group. I say all that because there is a safety that I'm excited about this year, and it's Nick Emmanwori of South Carolina, that defense we talked about with Demetrius Knight that we talked about on the edge and defensive tackle show. A very good defense, and yet Nick Emmanwori, who arrived as a 3-star recruit, was a 3-year starter for that Gamecocks defense, led 2 of those teams in tackles. That included this past year where he tied Demetrius Knight in solo tackles and led Knight in total tackles. It included his first season there when he made 22 more solo tackles than anybody else on the defense. We then saw Emmanwori improve his overall PFF grade and his coverage grade each of the past 2 years. 2024 found him ranking 16th in coverage among 200 FBS safeties who played at least 200 snaps. He had 6 INTs over the past 2 years. 4 of those came last season and included 2 that he returned for touchdowns. He is 6'3", 220 pounds, ran a 4.38 40 at the combine, 91st percentile among DBs. That's all DBs. 98th percentile vert, 99th percentile broad, 85th percentile bench press, despite an 86th percentile wingspan. So he's huge, he's fast, he's productive, he started right away. He outperformed teammates on a good defense. Emmanwori might wind up being the highest ranked safety that I have had in the rookie rankings in, I don't know, recent memory, I guess, at least.
There's a ton of potential with him. And like you said, doing it at 18 years old as a 3-star recruit. We talk about COVID seasons messing with recruiting. And I think that this is a prime example, maybe one of the most athletic safeties of all time in the NFL draft, ranked that low. But he did it from day one. I mean, he blankets tight ends, just is all over them with that size and athleticism. It's really hard to get any type of separation against him in coverage, and then he'll punish you. I mean, he's physical. The contested passes, forget about it. There's no way you're going to get position on Emmanwori. So a shot out of a cannon. You know, he'll go for the big hit. Like, he is not a wrap-up tackler like a lot of these safeties. When you're this athletic, you're going for the big play. We've seen him make those big plays in coverage. I think this is the type of rookie safety to draft in your rookie drafts, because it's all upside. I mean, if he hits, he could be one of the best safeties in the NFL, a number one overall safety in your IDP league. And if he doesn't, you're still not spending a high pick. I think Emmanwori is well worth it no matter where he goes in the NFL draft.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, Malaki Starks, his classmate, is, I think, similarly exciting for NFL purposes, but he doesn't strike me as quite so exciting on the fantasy side. Did spend all 3 of his seasons at Georgia starting. So, you know, a very good prospect. Like I said, 17 passes defensed over those 3 seasons. Did move around the formation. So that's something we like about Emmanwori. That's something we look for in safeties. He's just sized a lot more like a traditional safety. I think he's probably not headed for nearly as many box snaps as Emmanwori in the pros. How much time will Malaki Starks spend in the slot is my biggest question. Like, if he lands with a team that says, we see him like Antoine Winfield Jr. for the Bucs, then I'm more interested. Otherwise, I think there's just maybe we get something like Jesse Bates, where the upside is high, but the floor is also low.
I think it's fair. I think Starks is different in that he was able to freelance a bit in Georgia because they had that talent in front of him. I don't think the NFL is going to view Starks that way. Only 1 interception this past year. I think he's better as kind of this fast, athletic, help contain the run. He's not a big play threat. And I think with big play IDP leagues, that's going to be a problem. So it is going to be about usage. I just don't see Starks as a thumper in the box either. At 197, he has the size, but I don't think he has necessarily the instincts for that. I think he's going to be a better NFL player than for us.
And then the last guy that we got to talk about, I would normally not talk about cornerbacks, but Travis Hunter is a unicorn, and that gets thrown around a lot. It gets overused at this point, but he truly is, even among the few two-way players that we've seen. The latest seems to be that he's going to be more of a wide receiver, expected to be more of a wide receiver, but still dabble on the defensive side of the ball. So Shane, more than an evaluation, this is a make sure you pay attention, I think, because if we get to IDP rookie drafts and Travis Hunter has both wide receiver and cornerback eligibility in your draft, and your league does award offensive and defensive points to players that score on either side, then like he could be a first round level player. Because if you can start him at cornerback in your league every week and you're getting all of his wide receiver points, like he could be, I don't know, a historic scorer.
Right. And if he does play 2 ways enough, I mean, he's the 101 in rookie drafts for IDP leagues, especially if you can start him at corner. Definitely check your league scoring and settings. Tap your commissioner on the shoulder if your defensive guys aren't getting offensive points or vice versa. Just like, hey, Travis Hunter's coming here. We got to fix this. I know how to do that with one of the leagues I commish. I had to fix the scoring. I think he's certainly a top 3 rookie pick if he has that dual eligibility, depending on the platform. Even if he falls off and ends up only playing one position, it won't be a wasted pick. He's going to be really good. So I'd almost rather swing for the fences. If we get the first real true 2-way player, he's just going to break IDP leagues in half.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see exactly what his team says, exactly what leagues do. And, you know, like I said, check, because I couldn't tell you right now for my IDP leagues whether I get points on both sides, because we just don't have guys that do that. The guys aren't scoring on offense and defense. So I have no idea. It's going to create plenty of questions for plenty of Dynasty IDP players, something to figure out, but we're here to try to answer as many of those questions as we can. You can head to draftsharks.com now to get more answers, to see all the rookies on both sides of the ball. You can find our free rookie guide highlighting all the offensive players you could possibly need to know about for your dynasty or redraft leagues. You will find free in-depth dynasty reports on the top fantasy prospects on the offensive side, and you'll find our industry-leading suite of dynasty tools to help you draft, trade, and manage your team year-round. All that comes together to make Draft Sharks your unfair advantage.